Hello, my name is Kathy, and welcome to my BookTube channel. I've been watching BookTube videos for, I think, probably 3-4 months now, and I've really been enjoying what I've been watching. I've found a lot of great people to subscribe to, and you guys have really, it seems to me, formed an awesome community. I've been wanting to be a part of it for a while. I've always seen reading as kind of a solitary activity, but I love kind of being alive in this day and age because it's become so much more interactive in so many different ways. So that's very exciting that something that in essence is so solitary is now kind of easier to share with others. So I thought for my first video I would combine my intro with what I read in January. I read 6 books in January. 4 were books and 2 were plays. The first book that I read was Special Topics in Calamity Physics by Marisha Pessl. I have a lot of feelings about it, so I think I'm going to do a review on this one. For most of the book, I would say that it was really hard for me to put it down. So it's pretty thick, but it was a quick read for me, and I will speak more about it when I review it. The next book that I read was The Price of Salt by Patricia Highsmith. It's about a woman named Therese who is working in a soul-crushing job in a department store, and she's there for the holiday season, and it's terrible, and she's a theater set designer, but she can't find any jobs in her field, and she's in this relationship with a guy who's totally in love with her, and she's not feeling it at all, and things just aren't going very well for her. She feels kind of depressed, and it's very dreary in the beginning. In walks this woman one day named Carol, who wants to buy a present for her daughter for Christmas. Pretty much from the moment that Therese sets eyes on Carol, she's completely obsessed with her, and the book is pretty much about that obsession. They fall in love, which is not a spoiler, it's in the back of the book, and they go on this road trip across the country. Carol is married and has a child, so there's a lot of drama when she escapes in a way with Therese. So yeah, it was really hard to put down. I just wanted to know how their story would end. And now this is a bit of a spoiler, so cover your ears and I'll give you a thumbs up when I'm done. But it made me really think a lot about queer literature and queer films because I found myself waiting for one of them to commit suicide or to attempt it. And that didn't happen. It doesn't end with them, like running through fields of flowers or anything, but it does not end tragically either, which I really appreciated it because it made me think about how most of the queer stories that we read and watch have kind of tragic endings. So I really appreciated Patricia Highsmith for not ending it like that. So thanks, Patricia. The next book that I read was Snow Country by Yasunari Kawabata. I picked up this book because it was the December read for the International Reads Book Club on Goodreads, which originated on BookTube. I joined the club because I did the statistics for the books that I read in 2013, and I was deeply ashamed of myself. Not only, well, first of all, the number of women that I read was like 36 or 37%, which it's not great, but it's not as humiliating as the number of books that I read by people of color, which was so low that I can't even share what the number was. It's just, I'm so embarrassed. I thought it was a great way, it would be a great way for me to make sure that my 2014 reading was diverse enough. Certainly a step in the right direction, anyway. So, Snow Country, I enjoyed it. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, I believe. It touches on geisha culture and the difference between a mountain geisha and a city geisha. That was fascinating to read. And it's essentially a tragic love story between a geisha and one of the men who comes to the hot springs where she lives. Neither of the two main characters were likable, and I felt like I didn't really get to know them at all. It was written really in a very kind of dry, cold, distant way, and yet very beautiful. It was a really beautiful read, the way he writes about sort of the scenery, and I don't know, I just really felt like I could see that world. But in terms of the characters, I didn't really have strong feelings either way. I didn't really like them, I didn't really dislike them, I didn't really care about them. But I actually didn't mind that. I felt perfectly content. I think because the book was so short, I felt content to just kind of walk around that world for a little while and sort of casually observe and walk away at the end of it without having made any sort of emotional attachment. And I think for me it's refreshing every now and then to read something and not have to make any kind of strong emotional attachment to either the plot or the characters. I just thought it was a really poetic read and I enjoyed it. Okay, so the next book that I read was Where'd You Go, Bernadette by Maria Semple. I thought this book was hysterically funny. This book had me laughing out loud pretty much every page. So it's about this woman named Bernadette Fox who is a really brilliant former architect. When she was really young, she was really going places, but then this really big, really tragic event happens, and she's so upset and humiliated that she just runs away from architecture, runs away from the city, moves to Seattle, and that's where she raises her family. As the years pass, she has a daughter named Bee, and she lives with her daughter and her husband. She develops this kind of hatred for interacting with the outside world. She really hates it, hates running any kind of errand, interacting with the people in Bee's school. Bee goes to this pretty elite private school, and you can imagine the kind of parents, stereotypically associated with a school like that. And every time Bernadette has to interact with one of them, it's just the funniest thing ever because she hates all of them. So, anyway, her sort of attitudes about all this stuff gets to the point where she hires a virtual assistant in India to run every single errand for her. And I'm talking like making dinner reservations for their family for that week. Every single thing is done by this virtual assistant. The book sort of starts when Bee is 15, and so she's been getting really good grades. She aced her report card, and her parents wanted to give her a gift, and what Bee wanted was to go to Antarctica. So even though Bernadette has this crippling anxiety about the trip, about traveling, about being on a boat, all of that, um, she agrees to go. So anyway, on the eve, I think, the eve of the trip or the day of, I don't remember. Bernadette disappears, and so the book is pretty much Bee's attempt to find her mother, and it's made up of email transcripts, phone conversations, faxes, uh, all sorts of different things compiled to solve the mystery of where Bernadette is. I was very invested in finding out what was going to happen. So, yeah, I gave it 5 stars, which I was not expecting. I think when I picked it up, I just wanted a quick, funny read, and it definitely exceeded all expectations. Okay, so those were all the books that I read, and now here are the plays. The first play that I read was 4.48 Psychosis by Sarah Kane. This book was extremely dark. This play was very, very dark. It's essentially her suicide note. I would not recommend this to everybody. You really have to be willing to sort of go to the dark side. It's really hard to talk about it because it's structured really interestingly. I'm not sure if you can tell, but like there are no characters, there's no kind of scene breakdown, act breakdown. A lot of times you can't tell if it's one person speaking or a patient and a doctor. It's very sort of vague at times, and that was actually, when I finished the play, my main thought was, I really wish that I could see this staged in a million different ways because the possibilities are just kind of endless. And I think this is a play that's meant to be seen more than read. So yeah, I don't really feel like talking about this one anymore. But I really appreciated it. I thought it was written beautifully, honestly. It's very raw. Yeah, Sarah Kane. So the last thing I read was another play. I'm sure you've heard of this one because the movie's out right now. That's August Osage County by Tracy Letts. I loved it. And I'm really glad that I read the play before going to see the movie. And by the way, I loved the movie as well. Yeah, so it's about a dysfunctional family in Oklahoma. It's right up my alley. I really, really love reading any kind of story about a dysfunctional family. I have a whole dysfunctional family shelf on Goodreads. I love it. So it's really dark. It feels funny to call it dark right after talking about Sarah Kane. I use the same word to describe her, but it's a really different kind of dark. It's sort of cringeworthy in its honesty about family dynamics and family interactions. It is also hysterical, and what I love about it, and what I tend to love about books and plays, is when things are very kind of sad and tragic and really, really funny at the same time. I love that. So it's about this family. It sort of starts when the father of the family goes missing. And so the 3 daughters, one of them lives near the parents, but the other 2 have moved away. But because the father goes missing, the mom calls the family back and they all converge in the house. And sort of the drama unfolds from there. It was really good. It's a quick read. I highly, highly recommend it. It was brilliant. It was so good. It won the Pulitzer. Well deserved. All the praise that it's been getting. It makes you gasp. So yeah, that's what I read this month. Hope you enjoyed. If you have any feelings about any of the stuff that I read, I would love to hear them. And yeah, that's it.